Except on the day Publius Clodius was murdered by Titus Annius Milo on the Via Appia, Clodius's wife, Fulvia Flaccus Bambula, traveled everywhere with him, involving herself in every aspect of his life. That Fulvia was at Clodius's side for the entirety of their marriage, but not so on the day of his death, was Cicero's argument at Milo's trial, underpinning his case that Milo killed Clodius in self-defense, from an attack that Clodius had planned so carefully, as to leave his wife at home, for her safety. And Cicero is not the only source who describes Fulvia as playing a very active and public role in the political careers of her husbands. Fulvia's father, Marcus Fulvius Bambalio, and her mother, Sempronia Tuditanni, were among the last of two dying houses whose domination over Roman politics had waned following the deaths of Tiberius and Gaius Sempronius Gracchus. Fulvia's mother, before marrying her father, had been married to a man of patrician lineage, named Lucius Pinarius. From this marriage, Fulvia's elder half-brother, Lucius Pinarius Natter, was born, and as an adult, married one of Caesar's nieces. Following the death of Marcus Fulvius Bambalio, Sempronia Tuditanni married her third husband, Lucius Licinius Murena, the general under whom Publius Clodius served while he was in Gaul. When her mother's third husband, using Sempronia's wealth, and combining it with his own, put on lavishly expensive games of Apollo, a grateful public threw their support behind him. Additionally, Murena gained the support of then consul, Cicero, who was himself simply trying to prevent Catilina from winning the consulship, and Murena received the unexpected support of the legions, thanks to the discreet manipulations of Clodius. When Lucius Licinius Murena won election to the 62 BC consulship, Fulvia's marital prospects improved. Not only was she extremely wealthy, which made her the target of every fortune hunter in Rome, but as the stepdaughter of a consul, she now brought political treasure to the matrimonial table. With an auspicious marriage, Fulvia, like her mother, could do her part to ensure the return of her family to the top echelon of Roman politics. In this regard, Publius Clodius Pulcher was the perfect candidate. He hailed from a consular family, being the son and grandson of consuls on his father's side, and the grandson of a consul on his mother's side. Through his mother, a Caecilia Metella, Clodius was not only connected to the powerful Caecilii Metelli clan, who still held sway at the top of Roman politics, but he was also related to a member of the Scaevola family, Mucia Tertia, who had given Pompeius Magnus 2 sons. At least 3 of Clodius's 5 sisters were married to ex-consuls, and his 2 older brothers were expected to win the consulships in their designated years. But, having 3 boys with political futures, and 5 girls to dower sufficiently to attract consular husbands was a financially draining undertaking, which had left the family struggling economically, and had minimized the chances that Clodius, a third son, could expect an easy climb up the expensive cursus honorum, to high public office. He was the perfect husband for Fulvia. Clodius could connect Fulvia, and any children she bore him, to all the most important people in Rome. And yet, without her wealth, Clodius had ever-decreasing chances of reaching his own political ambitions. Clodius needed Fulvia as much as she needed him, and for Fulvia, such a husband was the most secure investment of her time, her energy, and her substantial dowry funds. As a wife who accompanied her husband everywhere, Fulvia was likely present for Clodius's recruitment of the various collegia he used to dominate the streets of Rome. And when Clodius began talk of adoption into a plebeian family, both Fulvia and her mother had played their parts. Fulvia had convinced Clodius, and Sempronia had pressured her consular husband, Murena, to support Fulvia's half-brother, Lucius Pinarius Natter, to fill a vacant seat in the College of Pontiffs, early in 58 BC. With the support of the urban plebs under Clodius, the support of Lucius Licinius Murena within the Senate, and the fact that Natter's wife was a niece of the Pontifex Maximus, Caesar, Lucius Pinarius Natter won election as a pontifex, whereupon he likely submitted Clodius's application for adoption into a plebeian household, which Caesar ultimately granted. Later, after Clodius ran Cicero out of Rome, Fulvia, alongside her husband, was part of the real estate grab which saw a large portion of the Palatine transferred to their ownership. Again, she used her half-brother, Panarius Natter, to quickly rezone Cicero's vacant land, by dedicating it to the god, Libertas. Then, by threatening to build across his property, cutting off its view of the Forum Romanum, Fulvia and Clodius acquired the property of a senator named Lucius Seius, who was forced to sell at a loss. They even went so far as to try and appropriate the portico of Catulus, a landmark built by Quintus Lutatius Catulus to commemorate his and Sulla's victory over the Cimbri in 101 BC. By investing wherever her husband's career took them, Fulvia helped to build a generous nest egg for her children, a boy named after his father, and a girl named Claudia Pulchra. But, after her husband, who had acquired the support of the Triumvirs, had been involved in the violence which delayed the 54 BC elections until halfway through the 53 BC year, Clodius's relationship with the Triumvirs had cooled. Crassus, who offered him protection and funded his antics, had departed for Syria. Pompeius, who hated Clodius, was the only triumvir remaining in the city, and Caesar, while in Gaul, had ceased responding to Clodius's letters. Additionally, we are told that Caesar sent Marcus Antonius to Rome to run for the 53 BC quaestorship, an election that was much delayed by Clodius's violent control of the city. Outraged by the delay, Marcus Antonius, hinted to have been having an ongoing affair with Fulvia, dating back as far as 58 BC, made an attempt on Clodius's life, which came to nothing. And yet, by the following January, Clodius was dead, killed by Titus Annius Milo, who was supported by the triumvir, Pompeius Magnus, and Fulvia was not with Clodius on that day. But, Fulvia wasted no time politicizing her husband's death for the urban plebs. She and her mother, Sempronia Tuditanni, used tribunes of the plebs, Titus Manatius Plancus and Quintus Pompeius Rufus, to drag Clodius's naked corpse outside, where it was paraded through the streets of Rome, and laid out on the rostra, in the Forum Romanum. As Fulvia sat before the burning Senate house, accepting the condolences and outrage of the urban plebs, who filed by in the thousands, she was immediately associated with Clodius's legacy, the woman to whom the people now entrusted their hopes, until her son came of an age to take up his father's mantle. However, in order to prevent some other populist from filling the power vacuum left by the death of her husband, Publius Clodius, Fulvia needed a new husband, someone to help her safeguard her son's inheritance against being squandered by some ambitious tribune of the plebs. Unfortunately, by the end of her 10-month mourning period, Pompeius Magnus had rid the city of most of the leaders of Clodius's cult-like party. The tribunes, Plancus and Rufus, had been exiled, along with many of Clodius's other top-ranking political allies. But one man, whom Pompeius mistook as a conservative, escaped his notice. Gaius Scribonius Curio was that man. Because he had heavily criticized Caesar's consulship of 59 BC, he had won the support of Rome's conservative senators, as well as the support of the people, who hailed the young man a true patriot of Rome, as one who was unwilling to see traditional government taken over by greedy, self-serving men. Curio, at one time, had run the streets with Clodius's gang of young nobles, and Fulvia knew him personally. Having returned from Asia, where he served his quaestorship, the next step up the cursus honorum, for Curio, would be the office of aedile, which was ruinously expensive to attain, and hold on to. As a spendthrift, who likely had acquired personal debt as well as professional, and whose political career was only beginning, Fulvia could offer him much as a wife. Besides her magnificent wealth, her dowry now included the tremendous support of the urban plebs, as well as the loyalty of Rome's various gangs of collegia. By the end of 52 BC, or the very beginning of 51 BC, Gaius Scribonius Curio became the second husband in Fulvia Flaccus Bambilo's portfolio, as she attempted to drag her family back to the top of Roman politics.